Erev Tov, everyone, and welcome to the Maimon Beit Knesset, formerly the House of Seven Beggars. Excuse me, have you ever bit your lip or the inside of your mouth, and you just know that, you did it once, you're going to do it at least 5 more times, and each time it's going to feel even worse. So, anyway, it is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, and therefore it is the Torah study in depth with yours truly, Rabbi. Good to have you all here. Let's see what we got in the chat room. We have Donald. Of course, we know there are others who are watching on their smartphones and on their tablets and stuff that can't actually participate in the chat. But in the chat room, we have Donald, who is here just about every time, unless something unusual comes up. He's usually here with us for all our broadcasts. So good to have you, Don. Always good to have you. Okay, so we left off last week. We are in the Parasha Mishpatim, which is the Sefer Shemot, or the Book of Exodus. And we left off at chapter 22, verse 29, and that's where we're going to pick up this evening. And of course, before we start, Barakat Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah. Okay, so verse 20. Now, just to bring you up to date, or those of you who are just joining us, we have, must be people watching the World Series, which if I wasn't doing the class, that's what I would be doing right now, but okay. Regardless, those of you who know me know that I am a huge baseball freak. So there you have it. We have been going through the laws of damages, and then we have progressed into the laws of the mitzvot. Marilyn has joined us, and Marshall has joined us. Good to have you. This is actually, a lot of these are actually related to the Kohanim, as we shall find out here in a moment. So again, we're going to begin with chapter 22, verse 29. So shall you do to your ox, to your flock, for a 7-day period it shall be with its mother. On the 8th day you may present it to me. Rashi goes on to say here that for a 7-day period it shall be with its mother. This is a prohibition for the Kohanim, that if he comes to hasten his sacrifice, he should not hasten it earlier than the 8th day, because it is lacking the minimum time requirements. And there's some additional information that we'll get into once we get through this. I find it interesting that 8th day. What else happens on the 8th day? A male child is circumcised on the 8th day, regardless of what day it falls on. Even if it falls on a Shabbat, even if it were to fall on Yom Kippur, there is the 8th day is the 8th day, and the child is circumcised on the 8th day. Okay, so going on with what Rashi comments here. Richard has joined us. Good to see Richard. Richard, I think I missed you last week. I know I missed Regina last week, and I didn't intend to. It's just that when things scroll up on the chat, sometimes I miss what's going on in there because I can't really roll back while I'm doing this. So if I did miss you, I apologize. And Rashi goes on to say, Simcha has joined us, and Yehuda. On the 8th day you may present it to me. One could think on the basis of the verse that it is an obligation to offer the firstborn bull or sheep on that day, the 8th day. This can be refuted, for it says, 8th here. It says further on, and from the 8th day and onward, it shall be accepted. Just as on the 8th, stated further on in the on is to validate the animal for sacrifice from the 8th day and onward. So too, the 8th stated here is to validate the firstborn for sacrifice from the 8th day onward. This is the verse's meaning, according to Rashi. And on the 8th day you are permitted to give it to me. So the further commentary on this one says, with regard to the 8th day, and because it's lacking the minimum time requirement, the further commentary says from Mechilta, the Kohen has the right to demand that the owner of the firstborn animal care for it until it is 30 days old, as Rashi said in his comments on the preceding verse. However, if the Kohen chooses to take it before 30 days, he must still wait until it is at least 8 days old before offering it on the altar. So in other words, the Kohen can leave it with the person for up to 30 days. But 30 days, it has to be sacrificed, but he has to care for it during that period. The owner has to care for it during that period of time. Now, the Kohen can take it any time during that period from the 8th day to the 30th day. He can take it at any time he wants to. But for the first 8 days, for the first 7 days, it has to remain with its mother. And on the 8th day, from that period on to the 30th day, he's able to actually take it and offer it as a sacrifice, a korban. Aryel has joined us. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay. And that's all the additional commentary that we have on that verse. So we'll go on to verse 30. People of holiness shall you be unto me. The flesh in the field that has been torn you shall not eat. You shall throw it to the dog. Why does it actually say that? Why doesn't it say just get rid of it? It's treif, just get rid of it. And the rabbis tell us, and we probably will get this in when we catch up on the Sefer HaAgadah, tell us that this was actually a reward. That the dog, because it didn't wet its lips, didn't howl, didn't snap, didn't bark at Bnei Yisrael when they were leaving Mitzrayim, that this was their reward for not doing that, that they were given all the treif. Hence why at our Seder, I don't know about anybody else's, at our Seder, when we did still have our dogs, that was the first, they were the first ones that were fed before the Seder began. Number one, because we are told that we are to make sure that the animals are fed before we feed ourselves. And because of this verse right here, that we are to reward the dogs for what they did for us in Mitzrayim. So, further, Rashi's commentary goes on to say, people of holiness shall you be unto me. If you are holy and abstain from repugnance and carelessness of unslaughtered animals and from animals that have been mauled, behold, you are mine. But if not, you are not mine. The flesh that has been torn. The law is that even the same, even for torn flesh in the house. But the verse spoke of that which is common, a place where animals are normally torn. Similarly, he found her in the field. Similarly, who will not be pure due to an occurrence at night? The same law holds true for the occurrence which leads to the impurity by day. But the verse spoke of that which is common. Onkelos renders the end of our verse through the tearing of a wolf or a lion. From a kosher species of beast or a kosher species of animal, while it is alive, you shall throw it to the dogs. It is not forbidden to give a non-Jew meat from a torn animal. In this respect, the non-Jew may be sold or even given the meat just as it may be given to a dog. Or perhaps this is incorrect. And the verse means that the meat must be fed to a dog as its literal meaning. To teach us otherwise, the Torah says, with regard to a carcass of an unslaughtered animal, or sell it to a non-Jew. All the more so, it is permitted to derive benefit from a torn animal. If so, why did the Torah say, to the dog? To teach you that the dog is more honored than he. The verse also teaches you that the Holy One, blessed is He, does not deprive any creature of its reward. For it says, and for all the children of Israel, a dog will not sharpen its tongue. Therefore, the Holy One, blessed is He, said in the verse, give him his reward. Okay. So, we got it right from the Torah. Okay, so I hope that is something, you people who have dogs, that I hope you will remember this come Pesach time. And, of course, I will remind you, you know how I am about Pesach, I'll remind you that you should get a kosher for Pesach treat for your dog and give your dog the treat before you start the Seder. Okay. Further commentary on this one, the one that is related to the carcass of an unslaughtered animal and from animals that have been mauled. The further commentary says, Trefa, torn animal, is an animal that has suffered an injury that will lead to death. Even if it is ritually slaughtered before it dies, it may not be eaten. As it relates to, behold, you are mine. If not, if you do what you're supposed to do, you'll be mine. If not, you are not mine. Further commentary says from the Mechilta, Rashi explained that the people of holiness shall you be unto me is not a command. It is a promise conditional upon fulfillment of the commandment at the end of the verse. Okay. As it regards to similarly, for he found her in the field. This whole thing that where it's common. This verse speaks of that which is common. From Deuteronomy 22:27. That verse explains why a married maiden who is violated is exempt from any penalty. The principle is that the act was done against her will, and she is not at fault. Rashi says that the Torah does not mean to exonerate her only in the case where the act took place in a field. The same holds true elsewhere, as long as she was unwilling. Nevertheless, she is more likely to be coerced in the field where there is no onlookers than in a populated area. The Torah describes the common circumstance in the field. Okay. From a kosher species or a beast or a kosher animal, species of animal, while it is alive. The further commentary on this one says that, according to a Targum Onkelos, the verse is not about an entire animal which has been torn to death, but rather about flesh torn away from a living animal. This is implied by the verse's use of flesh in the field, rather than an animal in the field. Such flesh is forbidden even if the animal was not mortally wounded and is subsequently slaughtered in accordance with halakha. The law and the verse holds true even if the flesh is not torn away by an animal, but is cut from an animal by man. The verse uses the example of flesh torn away by a wild animal because to Onkelos also it speaks of that which is common. Okay. So this kind of reminds me of the, and we do have the, that's one of the 7 Noachide laws, which is not to eat a limb from an animal while it is alive, which kind of carries over to here, which is the same thing. Any flesh torn from an animal while it is alive, even if it's later halachically taken care of, still cannot be eaten. It's forbidden. Okay, going on, let's see. Okay, this is about the, where it regards to may be sold to a non-Jew. Also permitted to derive benefit from a torn animal. Further commentary says, an unslaughtered carcass transmits impurity, and yet it may be sold to a non-Jew. All the more so a mauled animal which transmits no impurity, if it is slaughtered before it dies, may be sold to a non-Jew. Okay. Where it regards to teach you that the dog is more honorable than he, the further commentary says, this refers to the worshiper of pagan idols. Each human being was created with the potential to elevate himself spiritually and to come to recognize the true God, the creator of the universe. One who worships pagan idols has thus never reached his spiritual potential. Animals, on the other hand, cannot elevate themselves having reached their full spiritual potential at birth. Thus, the dog has already fulfilled his spiritual potential, while the idolater has not. In this sense, the dog is more honorable than the pagan. Very interesting. Okay, we move on to chapter 23 now. Marilyn says her brother's dog Max, I would assume this is your brother that was the rabbi. Brother's dog Max always got a boiled marrow bone every Shabbat. Nice. Okay, so we are on to 23, verse 1. You shall not bear a meritless report Do not put your hand with an evil person to be a fraudulent witness. Rashi goes on to say about this verse, you shall not bear a meritless report. This is to be understood as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos. You shall not accept a false report. It is a negative commandment addressed to one who accepts malicious talk and to a judge, that he should not listen to the words of one litigant until the fellow litigant comes to plead his side of the case. You shall not put your hand with an evil person who makes a false claim against his fellow by promising him to be a fraudulent witness for him. Okay. Okay, so and we can say we've shall not bear false witness, which is usually how we actually see it written. I kind of like the translation in the Rashi's commentary much better. I think it's more accurate, but that's me. Okay, so let's see where it regards. You shall not accept a false report. From the Mechilta Pesachim, folio 118a, Rashi cites Targum to show that Tisa usually translates bear, can also be understood as accept, and that the verse thus refers to one who listens to malicious talk. To prohibit against talking maliciously appears in the verse. Do not go slanderously among your people. Where it regards until his fellow litigant comes to plead his side of the case. Again, from Mechilta, the Tractate Sanhedrin, folio 7b. Otherwise, the word of the first litigant would be a meritless report, in that he might not hesitate to lie when there is nobody present to contradict him. And where it regards who makes a false claim against his fellow by promising him to be a fraudulent witness for him. Actually, it's a pretty severe penalty for doing that, which we will actually get into. Further commentary on that one says, putting one's hand with is used in the sense of being an accomplice. Moreover, one is considered an accomplice and in violation of this negative commandment as soon as he agrees to testify falsely, even if he never actually testifies. Although many editions of Rashi read, Jivti who? Again, I don't have my magnifying glass here, so I got to remember to get that. Which refers to another person who has already promised the claimant that he would testify falsely for him, and this is the interpretation cited by Sifrei HaChokamim, many earlier editions, and many commentaries have Shativ Shetavti Hehu, which addresses the potential false witness and better fits the meaning of the verse. Okay, so we're on to verse 2 now. You shall not go after the many to do bad. You shall not respond over a dispute to tilt after the many. Rashi goes on to say about this one, a very short verse, very powerful, because Rashi has a lot to say on this. You shall not go after the many to do bad. There is a halakhic interpretation of the sages of Israel on this verse, but the language of the verse does not fit in its context according to them. They derive here the first clause of the verse that judges do not arrive at a verdict which is to the detriment of the defendant by a majority of only one judge. They expound the end of the verse as follows. To tilt after the many is to be understood to say that if there are at least two more judges who opt to convict than one who than those who opt to acquit, tilt the verdict to conviction by their word. The verse speaks only of capital cases. They interpret the middle verse, you shall not respond over a dispute, as do not respond against a master. That is, they may not argue against the outstanding member of the court. For this reason, in capital cases, they begin polling the judges from the side. They first ask the lesser ones among them to state their opinion. In other words, they go in a progression of importance. According to the words of our rabbis, the interpretation of the verse is as follows. You shall not be after the many to do bad, to impose the death penalty on the basis of the one judge by whom those who convict outnumber those who acquit. And you shall not respond against the master by veering from his words, because the word Rev is lacking a yud. They interpret it as this in this manner. To tilt after the many means that in a majority after whom you do tilt the verdict, whose verdict is accepted, when at the time when there are at least two more judges among those who decide to convict than among those who opt to acquit. So it has to be a majority of at least two outvoting the minority. Okay, so it's not a simple a majority. It's not 12. It's 6 and 6. Or 7 and 5, which would be a simple majority. It has to be by 2. Okay, so let's see, the dividers do acquit. And from the implication of that which it says, you shall not go after the many to do bad. I understand that you should be with them for good. But on this basis, they said, they tilt the verdict in capital cases to acquittal by majority consisting of one vote. So, conviction has to be by 2, and acquittal only needs to have a simple majority of 1. Of 1. And the conviction is by a majority of at least 2 votes. Hence, when we start looking into rabbinic case law from back in the day when our people were still in Eretz Yisrael, as opposed to the state of Israel, when they were in Eretz Yisrael, we see that a death sentence is very, very rarely ever imposed. It's actually said that in a sitting, a court that I think it is that a court that passes 2 death sentences in a sitting is considered a murderous court. Okay. Targum Onkelos renders our verse. Do not refrain from teaching what is asked of you regarding a judgment. The Hebrew text of our verse is interpreted according to the Targum as follows: You shall not respond regarding a dispute by turning away. If they will ask you about a matter for your judgment, do not answer by turning away to one side and removing yourself from the dispute. Rather, judge the matter to its truth, i.e., give an honest verdict. But I say, as opposed to both the sages and Targumacalis, this is Rashi talking, in order to put the verse in its proper context in accordance with its simple meaning, and we see Rashi do this a lot, he'll always go to the simple meaning of the text to derive a more complex determination. In accordance with its simple meaning, and it is interpreted as follows. You shall not go after the many to do bad means, if you see wicked people perverting justice, do not say, since they are many, I will then follow them. Lesson for today, maybe? You shall not respond over a dispute to turn, etc., is interpreted as follows. If the defendant asks you about that perverted judgment, do not respond to him regarding that dispute with something that follows that wicked multitude by turning the judgment away from its truth. Now, going back here where it says that you shall not turn away from when you're asked to judge. Don't turn away from them and stuff like that. And we have from the I don't remember exactly where it is in the Talmud, but the Talmud says that to stand silent is to participate in the sin of the community. Henceforth, if a judge were to turn away from rendering a verdict, then he would be following the multitude to do bad. Okay, so rather state your opinion of the judgment as it is truthfully, and let the chain of responsibility for false judgment hang from the neck of the wicked majority. Okay, a lot to say about that little tiny verse there. Okay, so let's go back here and let's look at the further commentary on this. It's in here somewhere. Okay, so tilt the verdict to conviction by their word. The further commentary says, according to this interpretation, the beginning of the verse is a negative commandment not to convict by the majority of one, and Rot means conviction, while the end of the verse is a positive commandment, which says, tilt the verdict to conviction only by a majority of at least two. A court that tries capital cases is composed of 23 judges. A verdict to acquit can be passed by a vote of 12 for acquittal and 11 against. But if the number are reversed, 12 for conviction and 11 for acquittal, the judges cannot issue a guilty verdict. Rather, 2 more judges are added to the panel. So you got 25 now. If both opt for acquittal, there will be a majority of 1 for acquittal, 13 to 12, and the accused will be acquitted. If both opt for conviction, there will be a majority of more than 1 for conviction, 14 to 11, and the accused will be convicted. If the 2 new judges are split, then the situation remains at a stalemate because the majority of 1, 13 to 12, cannot convict. In that case, 2 more judges are added. So now we're now up to 27 judges. Okay. are added. This procedure continues until a verdict is reached. So here's a 27, 29, 31, 33, however many they need to add till they actually reach a verdict. Okay, if the procedure has not brought about a decision after 24 pairs of judges have been added, okay, which is 48, along with the original 23, that's some case, I'll tell you. Then these 71 must continue their deliberations until one of the judges is convinced to change his opinion. The result will be that either a majority for acquittal, 36 to 35, or a majority of more than one for conviction, 37 to 34, and a decision can be handed down. And that is from Tractate Sanhedrin, Folio 40A. Okay, so the verse regarding the verse speaks only of capital cases. Further commentary on that one says from Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin, Folio 2A, only with regard to the death sentence do we require a majority of 2. The court can impose any other penalty by a majority of 1. So if somebody stole something, then they can be convicted on a majority of 1 for conviction. Okay. Okay. Where it regards this is they may not argue against the outstanding member of the court. This only applies to the specific instance that Rashi describes. If another judge may never argue with the outstanding member of the court, then there is no purpose for more than one judge on the panel, namely the outstanding one. Okay. And we know that that can't be right because there's only one who is allowed to judge alone. Okay. Okay, where it talks about going from the lesser member to the more important one, from Sanhedrin 32a. In this way, the lesser members of the court would never dispute an opinion already stated by the outstanding member of the court. So it relieves them of having the either being thinking, well, I don't want to go against the senior member of the court, so that they're giving their opinion prior to his giving his opinion. That way it takes the pressure off of him, and you get a more honest, a more honest verdict. Let's face it, more honest verdict, because there is no pressure, because you have no idea what the senior members of the court are going to rule. Okay. Okay, where it regards, this has to do with Targum Onkelos, so it's got to be right in here. Yeah. Do not refrain from teaching what is asked of you regarding judgment. Further commentary says, in most printed editions, Targum Onkelos reads, do not refrain from teaching what is proper in your eyes regarding a judgment. However, Rashi's further statement, if they will ask you about, indicates that he had a different reading of Targum Onkelos here. Indeed, the version of Targum Onkelos cited in many early editions of Rashi reads as we have presented it in the Rashi text. See also Tosafot to Kiddushin, folio 49a, where a similar reading of Targum Onkelos is cited. Okay. So we're on to verse 3. Oh, verse 3 is over here. Okay. You shall not glorify a destitute person in his dispute. Rashi goes on to say, you shall not glorify. You shall not accord him honor by deciding the case in his favor, and saying, he is destitute, I will decide in his favor, and I will thereby honor him. Okay, this is the concept, the Greek call it isonomy, which means equality before the court. Okay, so equal standing before the court, I guess. So anyway, I'd say, don't just because he's destitute, don't don't rule in his favor just to raise his esteem. Not a bad idea. No participation trophies here. Okay, so no commentary on verse 4, which I find a little odd, but there's no commentary on verse 4, and then we'll go right into verse 5. So we jump right here from the judgment of the destitute person to when you will encounter an ox of your enemy or his donkey wandering, you shall surely return it to him. Now, the Talmud has quite a bit to say about this, about how many times do you have to do it? Well, as many times as is necessary, unless he refuses to assist his donkey, his ox or his donkey. Anyway, you are obliged to return it to him or keep it until it can be returned, or you can find the owner. Okay, verse 5, perhaps you will see the donkey of someone you hate lying under its burden. Will you refrain from helping him? Okay, Rashi goes on to say, perhaps you will see the donkey of someone you hate, and so on. Here, ki is used as perhaps, which is one of the four meanings for which ki is used. This is the verse's explanation. Perhaps you will see a donkey lying under its burden. Will you refrain from helping him? It is read with astonishment. You shall surely help. You shall surely help. Oh, okay. This is the rest of the verse. You shall surely help along with him. Okay. Along with him is a key word in this. Okay, so Rashi goes on to say, you will refrain from helping him. It read with astonishment. You shall surely help him along with him. This example of atzivam means helping. Like the word lazuv in the phrase saved and helped. And like the word Vum in the phrase, and they will fortify Yerushalayim up to the walls, which means they filled it with dirt. To help and to assist to strengthen the wall. Similar to his use, this use of the word ki in our verse is interpreted as a preceding comment is use of ki in the verse. Perhaps you will say in your heart, these nations are more numerous than I am, etc. The phrase includes ki should be understood. Perhaps you will say with astonishment. Then the verse responds, you shall not fear them. As an example, as an interpretation derived from the verse, the rabbis expounded it as follows. When you shall see, you shall refrain, as a declarative statement implying there are times that you may refrain from helping, and there are times that you must help. How is this to be applied? If he is an elder and it is beneath his dignity to unload a donkey, the Torah tells him, you may refrain. Or if one sees the animal of a non-Jew, it is carrying the burden of a Jew, and the Torah tells him, you may refrain. You shall surely help along with him to unload the burden. Antayagamakalos renders, you would refrain from helping him as you would refrain from taking for him. That is, taking its burden from it. Okay, so again, a lot of additional commentary on this one. Let's see. Now there's a declarative statement, you shall refrain, but as a question, will you refrain, can also mean abandoning. Indeed, Targumon calls you. Yeah. Okay, let's get down here. So the word key. We had this whole big discussion about the word key. The word key in our verse could not be interpreted as any other meaning of key because, when, or if. If it were, the verse would say, because of when or if you will see the donkey one whom you hate. Okay, so because you will see the donkey of one whom you will hate, or when you will see the donkey of one whom you will hate, or if you will see the donkey of one whom you will hate lying beneath its burden, you will refrain from helping him. Okay, so it changes the meaning completely. You shall surely help him. You shall surely help along with him. This cannot be the correct understanding of our verse, for it would be self-contradictory. You are first told to refrain from helping him, and then you are told to help him. By interpreting ki as perhaps, the verse can be understood as discussing a situation in which a person merely considers not helping. Then the Torah commands him to help. In the verse in Deuteronomy is similar to our verse. If it were understood as because, or when, or if, you will say in your heart, these nations are more numerous than I. The verse would be describing a situation in which one is already afraid. It could not go on to say, you shall not fear them, for the fear has already been realized. By inserting the key as perhaps you will, as we do in our verse, the verse in Deuteronomy can be understood as referring to a situation in which one merely considers the prospect of fear. The Torah can go on to command, you shall not fear them. Okay. Okay, you shall surely, okay, back up. Yeah, I'm not going to beep. I'm just going to simply back up. There's that one. There's that one. Boy, they put those numbers so small on here. It's really hard to find them sometimes. Fine. There it is. Okay. You may refrain. All that, just find that. You may refrain. Where it regards you may refrain, the additional commentary says from Bava Metzia, folio 32a, the same holds true if both the animal and the burden belong to a non-Jew. Rashi interprets according to one opinion in Bava Metzia, folio 32b. The halacha, however, is not in accordance with that opinion, but follows the other opinion, which holds that one must help unload the donkey, whether it belongs to a Jew or not. Okay. Okay, so we'll go on to, we're at our halfway point, so let's go ahead and take our break, and then when we return, we'll pick up with verse 6, and we'll go from there. So we're going to take a quick 6-minute break, and we will be back. Stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off. Checking the chat room, see if anybody snuck in while I wasn't looking. We seem to be good, so okay. Verse 6, you shall not pervert the judgment of your destitute person in his dispute. Rashi very briefly says, your destitute person. This is an expression of longing, for he is detached from any possessions and longs for all that is good. The additional commentary on that one goes on to say, the Midrash, Vaikra Rabbah 34:6, list 8 names by which Scripture calls a pauper. Ani, afflicted; Evyon, one who longs, our verse. Miskein, despised, from Ecclesiastes. Rash, impoverished, from 1 Samuel. And Dal, detached from his ancestral property, as above. Dal, oppressed, from Psalm 9, verse 10. And Mach, trampled upon, from Leviticus 27:8. And Helech, vagrant, from 2 Samuel 12:4, or according to Yefei Toar, Helech, weak. Rashi here explains the reason a pauper is called Evyon. Okay, good to know. At least we're not getting a grammar lesson here. Okay, so my sound is fantastic. Well, thank you. I actually moved my microphone a little closer. So just so I wouldn't get try and cut out as much background noise as I can. Okay, verse 7. Distance yourself from a false word. Do not kill one who is innocent or one who is righteous, for I shall not exonerate a wicked person. Rashi goes on to say here, do not kill one who is innocent or one who is righteous. How do we know if one leaves the court convicted and sentenced to death, and someone says, I am able to argue in his favor and prove his innocence, that they return him to the courthouse and renew their deliberations? The Torah says, do not kill one who is innocent, even though he is not righteous, in that he was not vindicated by the court. Nonetheless, he is free from the death penalty because you have grounds to acquit him. If his would-be defender indeed has legitimate proof of his innocence. And how do we know that one who leaves the court acquitted, and someone says, I am able to argue against him and prove his guilt, that they do not return him to the courtroom and retry him? Do not kill one who is righteous. That is, and this one is righteous, for he has been vindicated by the court. Kind of an odd way of explaining it. For I shall not exonerate a wicked person. It is not incumbent upon you to take him back, for I will not vindicate him in my judgment. Even if he left your jurisdiction having been declared innocent, I have many agents to put him to death by the death that he deserves to suffer. Okay, so in here we have the additional commentary, for he has been vindicated by the court. The additional commentary says, again from Sanhedrin, folio 33b, the verse implies that implies this law because it is obvious that innocent and righteous people may not be killed. Be'er Yitzhak. Rashi also explains how righteous and innocent are not redundant. Okay, good to know. Verse 8. You shall not take a bribe, for a bribe will blind those who can see and will make righteous words crooked. Rashi goes on to say here, you shall not take a bribe, even to judge truthfully, all the more so to pervert the judgment. This verse must include taking a bribe with intent to judge truthfully, because with regard to perverting the judgment, it is already been said, do not pervert justice. Okay. Will blind those who can see. Even that's, and again, there's I think it's either in the Talmud or the Sefer Haggadah saying that a judge should be, your judges should be wealthy men, because you can't bribe a wealthy man. He already has what he wants, So, will blind those who can see, even a Torah scholar who takes a bribe. In the end, his mind will become confused, and his learning will be forgotten, and his vision will become dim, and will make crooked. This is to be understood as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos as and corrupts. Righteous words. This means words that are justified, words of truth. Similarly, it is rendered by Targum Onkelos, which means upright words. Okay, so where it regards even the Torah scholar, the additional commentary says Rashi uses the term chacham, scholar, rather than following the language of the verse using gikeach, one who can see. Because this comment is taken from our Talmud, Tractate Ketubot, Folio 105a, where it is based not on our verse, but on a parallel verse in Deuteronomy 16:19, which reads, "For bribery will blind the eyes of scholars." Okay, where it refers to judgments of truth, additional commentary says the laws of the Torah, as it says, the judgments of Adonai are truth. And where it regards the upright words. The noun can be either nifrad, independent, or samuch, connected. For example, the noun Devarim, words, is independent, i.e., it stands by itself, while a noun divrei, words of, cannot stand by itself, but must be connected to another word, usually another noun, in what is called a semichot, a construct form. I knew we were going to get into grammar. I knew it. I just knew it. Rashi just cannot leave it alone. Okay, so these are different forms of the word also have different meanings. Thus, in the phrase Devarim Gedolim, the word Devarim is an independent noun modified by the adjective Gedolim, and the phrase means great words. But in the phrase Divrei Gedolim, the word Divrei is a noun in the construct form connected to the noun Gedolim, and the phrase reads, words of the great. Accordingly, Ibn Ezra rejects Rashi's interpretation of Divrei Zadikim as righteous words and refers words of the righteous. Okay, nevertheless, Rashi feels that the meaning of Divrei Zadikim could not be words of the righteous, for one who takes a bribe cannot be called righteous. Got a point. Got to give him that. He does have a point. Okay. Verse 9. You shall not oppress a stranger. You know the soul of the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Mitzrayim. Rashi goes on to say, you shall not oppress a stranger. In many places, the Torah warns with regard to the stranger, or a convert, because his inclination is to evil. The soul of the stranger, how hard is it for him when they oppress him? Okay, so additional commentary on this one goes to, because his inclination is to evil, from Bava Metzia, folio 59b, because he is inclined to be guided by his evil inclination. That is, he is liable to revert to the behavior he was accustomed to before he converted. Which makes sense because I've seen it myself. Okay. And that's it. That's it for the additional commentary. Verse 10. 6 years you shall sow your land, and you shall bring in its crop. Rashi goes on to say here, you shall bring in its crop. The word siftam here means to bring into the house. Like the word safto in the phrase, you will bring him into your house. Okay. With regard to bringing into the house, Bava Metzia, the further commentary, Bava Metzia 59b, because he is inclined to. Oh, I'm sorry. Jumped ahead here. Deuteronomy 22:2. Asaph Tom. Asaph. Often means gathering and that which is scattered. It does not have that meaning here. Well, thank you very much. C2 Rashi 2 verse 9:19 above and 2:34:22 below. Okay, that was a tremendous amount of help. Verse 11. And in the seventh you shall let it go and leave it alone, and the destitute of your people shall eat, and their remnant the beast of the field shall eat. So shall you do for your vineyard and your olive grove. Rashi goes on to say, you shall let it go from work, and leave it alone from eating its fruit after the time of removal. Alternatively, you shall let it go from complete work, such as plowing and sowing. Leave it alone from fertilizing and hoeing. And the remnant beasts of the field shall eat. This verse wishes to compare the food of the poor man to the food of the beast. Just as the beast eats without tithing, so too the poor eat the fruit of the seventh year without tithing. The sages derived the law from here when they said, there is no tithe on the seventh year. So shall you do for your vineyard. The beginning of the passage is talking about a field of white. I think that's actually supposed to be wheat. As it says above, yeah, it's got to be wheat. Yeah, okay. You shall sow your land. Okay. So further commentary on this one says, with regard to refrain from eating its fruit after the time of the removal. When a species is no longer available to animals in the field during the seventh year, any other species that has been stored must be removed from storage. The time of these species disappears from the field is thus the time of removal. Okay, so basically, when it's no longer available in the field, what you have in your storage, you have to remove it. Remove it from your house. Okay. With regard to leave it alone from fertilizing and hoeing. Me'od katan, folio 3a, plowing and planting are complete work, in that they are necessary for the plant to grow. Fertilizing and hoeing improve the quality of the fruit, but are not essential to growth. Okay. With regards to actually it's 30. That is if I can find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so too the poor eat. The additional commentary says the law of tithing, the produce of the seventh year, applies to every Jew, not only to the poor. The law of not tithing. Excuse me. The law of not tithing, the produce of the seventh year, applies to every Jew, not only the poor. The Torah uses the example of the poor because of the great chance which comes about in their lives in the seventh year. During all other years, they must beg for their food from others. But during the seventh year, they eat of the ownerless produce as equals to all others. Okay, where it regards there is no tithe in the 7th year, further commentary says from the Kilta. The Torah would not mention what the beast eats unless it intends that some law be derived from it. And with regards to, talks about a field of white. And again, okay, so it is white. Okay, the passage is talking about a field of white. Okay, so let's find out what this field of white is. The further commentary says, a field of grain, legumes, or vegetables is called a field of white because it is not shaded by trees like an orchard. Oh, okay, so I'll go along with that now. Is it regard? Oh, okay. So we're into the you shall sow your land. Planting applies to vines and trees. Sowing does not. Okay. Okay. So verse 12. For a 6-day period you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall desist, so that your ox and your donkey may be at ease, and your slave woman's son and the stranger may be refreshed. Rashi goes on to say here, and on the 7th day you shall desist. Even on the seventh year, the weekly Sabbath should not be uprooted from its place. This must be stated so that you should not say, since the entire year is called Shabbat, the weekly Shabbat should not be observed in it, so that your ox and your donkey may be at ease. Let it be at ease. The verse serves to permit the animal to eat the grass of the ground. Or perhaps this is incorrect, and the verse means only that he should confine it indoors, so that it should not pluck the grass on the Sabbath. You can say, to refute this possibility, that this would not be ease, but pain. Okay, your slave woman's son. This verse speaks of the uncircumcised slave and the stranger. This refers to the resident alien. Nora has joined us. Nora says, I was thinking snow, but that's because it's so cold out. Yeah. Okay, cold is relative to where you live. Okay, so up here in Michigan, yeah, it's been rather cool. Let's put it that way, cool. I was talking to Rabbi Ansel last night, and those of you who know Rabbi Ansel has been living in the Dominican Republic for quite some time now, and occasionally every year or every couple of years he returns to Canada, to Toronto actually, to help out a friend. And I was talking to him last night, and he says, I'm freezing here. Dude, your blood is too thin now, you know. So anyway, yeah, cold is relative. Okay, so let's see. Here's slave women, slavers. Okay, so we're on to the additional commentary. Let's see. Okay, we already covered that, so it's all over here. Okay, so There's a pluck. Oh, okay. So, with regards to the verse, serves to permit the animal to pluck and eat the grass of the ground. Further commentary says, although one must rest one's animal on Shabbat, see chapter 20, verse 10, this does not entail restraining it from its natural activities, such as plucking grass, and an act forbidden to its master on the Shabbat. Okay. With regard to the uncircumcised slave, it has already been stated in chapter 20, verse 10, that a circumcised slave must rest on the Sabbath. This verse refers to a slave who has not yet been circumcised, so they get to rest also. With regards to and the stranger, Zager Toshav. This refers to the resident alien. The further commentary on this says stranger here does not mean a convert, which would be a ger tzedek. And here the term that's used here is a ger toshav. Stranger does not mean a convert. The convert has already been prohibited from working on Shabbat. According to Rabbi Meir, from the Talmud, one of the great rabbis of the Talmud, a resident alien is one who has accepted the prohibition against idolatry as binding. According to the sages, he has accepted all 7 Noahide commandments. Rambam decides the halakha in accordance with the sages. Rashi to Avodah Zarah, folio 24b, also follows that view. However, in numerous other places, such as Leviticus 25:35, Pesachim, folio 21b, Sanhedrin, folio 96b, Avodah Zarah, folio 64b, etc., he cites the opinion of Rabbi Meir. The restrictions on work for the resident alien are less stringent than that for the Jew. According to one opinion in the Mechilta, he may only do work on Shabbat that a Jew may do on a festival. While according to another opinion, he may do what a Jew may do on Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days of the festival. Some Rishonim hold that he is only forbidden to do work for a Jew. Others, even for himself. And there we have it. Okay. I think we'll do one more. Okay. Verse 13. Be watchful of all I have said to you. The name of the gods of others you shall not mention, nor shall it be heard in your mouth. We got plenty of commentary on this one. Okay. Be watchful of all that I have said to you. Rashi goes on to say, this verse serves to make every positive commandment, all 248 of them, an element of a negative commandment, which is the 365. For every example of watching in the Torah is a negative commandment, appearing in a place of a negative statement. You shall not mention. That one should not say to another, wait for me beside such and such idol. Okay? Remember that. Okay? Hence why, Jews do not say, they say extians. Okay? Or stay with me on the festival day of such and such idol. Okay. So, like Sunday, we have a pagan festival coming up. We would not mention that day. Well, come on over here on such and such a day. Okay, alternatively, be watchful of all I've said to you. The name of the gods of others you shall not mention. This serves to teach you that the prohibition against idolatry is as important as all the other commandments combined. The one who is careful with it is like one who observes them all. Nor shall it become heard from a non-Jew through your mouth. The verse tells us that you should not form a partnership with a non-Jew, for he will swear to you by his idol if a dispute arises. Thus, you would turn out that you cause the idol to be mentioned because of you. Okay, so basically, not really a lot of additional comment. Actually, no additional commentary on this. Just some references to other places in the Torah and in the Talmud. So there you have it. So we are going to stop there for this evening. Barakat Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat hamet v'hayei olam natan b'tochenu barakat Adonai noten Torah. And when we return next week, God willing, we will pick up with verse 14. We are coming pretty quickly to the end of Parashat Mishpatim. And when we get to the end of Parashat Mishpatim, then we will catch up with our little Midrash says, and our Sefer HaAgadah. And like I said, probably next week or the week after, depending on how deep we get into this. We got probably next week. Probably next week we'll get to it, and then the following week we'll get caught up with the little midrashes and the Sefer HaAgadah. So I want to thank you all for being here this evening. Don't forget that on Friday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern is Kabbalat and Mariv Shabbat service, and Parashat Hayei Serah this week, one of my favorites. And on Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. Eastern is the Shacharit and Musaf. And then right back here for Monday for Zeta's Story Corner. Until then, everyone, Laila Tov.